Rumors had an update, and I guess post-update things are not the way they need to be. But there we go. So yeah. So before we get into PSP, just to recap a little quickly here for the recording, Erica Jane, you were talking about, to me, essentially, managing and mastering association management. Everything you said about Dr. Shivali and about being aware of your beliefs and how those beliefs are connected to your behaviors, and specifically how those beliefs influence and affect your feelings, right?
Right, right.
So that connectivity between feeling and belief is what you are paying attention to this week, correct?
Mhm. It is. That's right.
Which to me is absolutely association management.
Right, right.
You remove association management from habit management. Why are they two different things? Because yes, I can associate this with that, but it doesn't necessarily make it a habit, or it doesn't necessarily be such a strong entrenched habit that needs overbending in order to change,
Right.
right? So when we see this, the first part is to truly understand the association and look at it in detail. Okay, this is illogical, it's irrational, doesn't make sense, it came about randomly, it came about inadvertently, came about unintentionally,
Uh-oh. We lost you.
Yeah, it will come back, I hope. Uh,
Oh, there.
and
so
incrementally whatever, to understand that association
breaking big time. Sorry,
Oh gosh.
it is breaking big time, Sil. Sorry.
That gives,
then
all new emphasis to just one word. Understand. Really makes you think about it.
Yeah,
Very
it was interesting.
fair.
But
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to hearing what Mom has written down about all of this. I went in and was chatting with her this morning, and then she started furiously writing
mhm.
some things down. So I'm really curious. I'm sure she'll share in
Oh
her
yeah.
next session. So I'm curious to hear her
So
thinking about all of this too.
be on Thursday, day
Okay.
after tomorrow. So yeah, so we will have that. Even last time, it was really amazing what she was
Yeah,
sharing, and that was something. I was really enjoying that.
me
That
too.
was
That was a
yeah,
really good one. I
yeah.
agree. Oof.
Okay, so I don't know what's
Yeah,
happening
I'm
with.
not sure what happened there. Must have totally lost his connection.
It was happening. Today was a bit weird day, but interesting
Huh.
because we all were online. We all were trying. Yes, Sil was late, just for a couple few minutes late. But, we all able to connect with each other. Sue, me, and Sil, and then Janelle was trying
Oh, yeah.
continuously, but not able to connect. And it was it was really interesting that we all
Yeah,
were trying, but nothing was happening. Uh, so sometimes it happens. So okay, uh,
true.
but
Yeah.
yes, it was like we were feeling like okay, it was a waste for 2 hours. We were just
could you guys hear
trying to
that?
connect. Oh yes, what?
Oh, sorry, I don't know, somebody called me. I very seldom get calls, but
Oh, no, I didn't hear anything about a call.
Yeah.
Interesting.
oh, good, okay. Did you hear it, Beena? The call?
No, no.
Wow, wow. Well, that's interesting that you heard it. Oh, interesting. Anyway, they were rejected. I put this note the feelings. They weren't
I
traumatized.
like it.
So please say what you were saying.
I was finished with what I was saying. I just say that that whole thing. It's all interconnected and it needs to be deliberate.
Right,
All of what we're talking about. That
right.
that changing beliefs. It's part of habit and association management. and awareness, attention management, all of the managements come into it. All of it. It's a big deal. Because if you are not continuous and deliberate and constant, and if you don't have the habit, first of all, of zooming out of your emotions, you're never going to be in a position to be able to change your beliefs because you'll never be aware of them
Right.
in the moment. After the fact, yeah, but even then, it's kind of too late. You need to be in that moment awareness. So when we associate our habits and routines, the physical ones, we start by saying, okay, I'm just going to do everything differently from now on. That's the key. That's the start. And this leads us to this point of deliberation.
Right.
That's very cool. It's very cool and very exciting.
I think one of the big things, okay, Bandit, why do you get right in my face as soon as I start talking?
Because that's the locus of attention.
Apparently so. It just every time
Right.
gets right over here and gets right in my face.
But look at it from Bandit's point of view. It wants to get your attention, and it understands attention, right? And where it's at. So it goes where your focus is.
True.
That's where your attention is, and it puts it in that spot.
True. So yeah, for the purpose of the recording, I think one of the big things for me that that was a point of what I was saying was that a big realization for me yesterday and today has been that just because we come to a new awareness about something, and even an awareness about a belief of ours that we know we want to change, it doesn't mean that the habits associated with that belief are going to magically change. That real lasting change and habit replacement, or I guess real lasting behavioral change and change of being and doing, typically comes from a combination of awareness and habit replacement. And it's totally normal to revert back to old habits, even though we have an awareness of them. That's totally normal. It's okay if that behavior continues to come up. That's just an opportunity for us to work on replacing that habit. Ouch.
Yeah. Habits are peculiar, and think of habits as kind of like a virus. That they look to self-replicate, and they look to entrench, they look to keep themselves alive. They have a survival instinct.
Right. It's true. Very true. Okay. Are we ready to do a little bit of...
Yeah. I mean, when we think of weeds, they take... Sure. Yeah, I just wanted to say habits are like weeds. They take extra effort to get rid of.
I actually was thinking that this morning. I was thinking about
about
how, you often hear people sort of talking about tending to the garden of your mind and, sort of constantly weeding out things. And I was thinking about that, that's a perfect example of the weeds are going to continue to grow back. You don't just have, have an awareness and then like, oh, zapped all of the weeds and they're never going to grow again ever. It's a constant doing. The weeds will continue to come back, and that's part of the process, is pulling those weeds. The awareness is really just that there are weeds. That's the awareness, is that, oh, look, there's something that needs to be pulled. You still have to actually pull them out.
And when it comes to weeds specifically, you better make sure you pull them out to root and all.
Right.
You can pull them out, you grab them and you pull, and it looks like there's a bit of root, but you didn't get the whole root. They come back again.
It's true.
Overbending is required when it comes to weeds, right?
True. Very true. Okay, I was trying to remember where. It seems like it's been forever since I've done these things.
Module 11.
Where we were. I think that we left off on session 3. We had just finished session 2 of
module 11.
Module 10.
Oh, really? We didn't go to 11. We were on 11 with Joe.
Still, yeah, he's ahead of me at this point.
Brilliant.
So module 3 session 3 of module 10, I think is where we left off. That's inadvertent condoning. And my repeat back takeaway from this one was that not choosing is also a choice. Similarly, choosing to not disagree is agreement for a BSer. They take advantage of our tendency to avoid confrontation and use this as a way to continue their BS uncontested. We become responsible for the consequences of BS via our choice to not disagree. And the exercise.
They're very skilled BMNs in their own peculiar way. They are quite skilled at understanding psychology, a very particular aspect of psychology, but they do understand it very well, and they manipulate and exploit it and utilize it.
Right, that's very true. Absolutely. The first question of the exercise is, when a BSer or BMN says something like, I know John agrees with me, when it's clear John does not and is too uncomfortable to say so because they don't like or want confrontation and want to avoid making a scene, what are diplomatic and non-confrontational ways to deal with such situation? And when Joe went through this one, I said at the time that my answer was really like, I really don't know, and I'm really interested in finding out.
And I remember.
Talked about that a bit at the time. That was really interesting. So my answer, as I said, was, to be honest, I really don't know that I have a great sense of what are good diplomatic and non-confrontational ways to deal with that. I took a stab at it and said, maybe saying something like, what do you gain by John agreeing with you? Or saying, that may be, but John agreeing with you doesn't change my opinion for me, et cetera, et cetera. And continuing to use the for me intro to deflect away from their attempt to suck John into the equation and continue. So, if they keep bringing up, well, John, blah, 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 just kind of continue repeating back, well, for me, XYZ. And kind of underscoring the fact that it really doesn't matter what John thinks, whether he agrees or not. It's changing your opinion of what's right and good for you.
Wow. Right. So if we look at this from a pure strategic way, let's say there is some necessity to unhook from John because, well, John is management. Okay, John is wimpy management, but no matter. So John's opinion actually does matter here.
Right.
I can use the same tactic as the BMN, except positively. And then I could maybe say in the diplomatic side, I'm not sure. The way I understood it, John is not looking at it, and I'm not saying he's disagreeing, right? This is in parenthesis now. I'm not saying he's disagreeing, but I'm saying, you know what? The way I understood it, John isn't quite exactly saying it like that or seeing it the same way, right? There's some nuance, there's some difference involved. So isn't that right, John? It's not quite exactly your position. It's not quite exactly the same. Now, I'm not putting John in a spot where he has to say, yeah, I disagree with BMN. But he can say, well, yeah, it's not exactly. That gives him an out, right? To both be honest and also not to confront the BMN. But also, I'm putting a bit of pressure on him not to disagree with me.
Right.
If you're going to be a wimp, John, okay, that's on you. I'm giving you an out where if you now weren't a wimp, you could express your honest opinion. I'm not forcing your opinion. I'm just saying I know for a fact that it isn't what the BMN said, but I'm providing you this out where you don't have to take a stand either way. Now, that ambiguity is all I need. I don't actually need the disagreement. And this is very key. So when we understand the underlying psychology, which is avoidance of disagreement from John and forcing agreement or subverting agreement from the BMN, right? So when I now lead it into ambiguity, I avoid this entire problem because this is what the entire BMN's deal is based on. This forcing and leveraging of agree and disagree. When I move into ambiguity, I succeed in my aim because he needs the agreement. He can't have ambiguity. Ambiguity in this case is tantamount to disagreement.
Right.
But this is my diplomatic solution, understanding that he needs agreement specifically.
Yeah.
We tend to believe that if I push disagreement in some way, then I succeed. No, I don't need that. Ambiguity is the same as disagreement.
Yeah.
Same thing as in chicken land, there's no equality.
Right.
Right? It's better or worse. You come and be their equal, they see this as, well, you're not better, so I don't know what you are, but if you're not better, then that means you must be worse.
Right.
Mentality of opposites. So they pick on your head, right? So it's the same logic. Okay, well, it's ambiguity. Well, it's not agreement. It's not necessarily, well, it's not agreement. So so okay, but the BMN has put in, okay, they're not a chicken, so they're a bit more sophisticated. They can't now make an argument out of it and say, well, yeah, but John actually does. I didn't say he disagrees with you. I said, I'm not sure exactly what he does say. He never made his position that clear. Say it doesn't work for me. I get it. I can't quite connect to it. I'm not saying it's wrong. Again, in parentheses, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying it's cockeyed. I'm not saying it's messed up. I just don't get it. It's all on me. But anybody who's listening or saying, well, I don't get it either. It doesn't make any sense to me either. Well, he's politely saying it's a lot of rubbish. Okay,
Right.
they get it. People do get it. And then they start to see a way out. And now I become the focal point and I use my authority to say, well, it doesn't work for me. And I provided diplomatically, I provided an out for others like John who want to disagree. And then I could even say, John, I get the feeling this. No, I don't say, John, does this work for you? I could ask him a direct question and put him on the spot. I could again preempt and say, John, I'm getting the feeling that this doesn't exactly work for you either. Doesn't exactly work. Not doesn't work for you. That's very definite. I'm using ambiguity again. Doesn't exactly work for you. What does it cost John to say, no, it leaves him that openness of ambiguity where he can go anywhere as pressured. But if he says, yeah, well, not really, doesn't exactly work for me either. Wow, he's not disagreed with anybody. He's just said this doesn't exactly work for him. So I've provided a diplomatic out. And now once that bubble is broken and other people start to chime in and say, well, me neither, me neither. BMNs, they read the winds of change very quickly, right?
Right.
So my diplomacy now leverages. Well, that's not exactly what I was saying. The BMO say, you guys are misunderstanding. Let me try again. And now they will say something completely different.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. Very interesting. Whoops, I think we lost you.
Oh, dropped again. Okay.
Because,
It's lagging.
They're always looking, try to incidental or coexisting contradictory conceptions and beliefs. It's amazing. And ambitions and goals. The two can contradict each other right together like that in the same time, same place. It's incredible.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. So
real quick, Erica Jane. So the key to that diplomacy there was understanding that I don't want to say anything that is in any way opens me up to direct.
Whoops.
Disagree.
Oh, there we go. Right.
By using I'm going to disagree by using a third method. Right? A color, not a black and white option. Not to agree, disagree, but some are third alternative. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Oops. Yeah.
Is to get out of the black-white options.
Right.
To live in the world of color, right?
Yeah. I like it. Yeah, it's funny what you were just saying about that doesn't work for me. Ties into the next question. It was, what are some things we can say where we disagree or agree without saying so directly and specifically? And I said, I like Phil's suggestion of that doesn't work for me. Something like, well, I understand your perspective, but I don't think that will work for me. I also think stressing for me is a good way of indicating that you may have a different perspective.
Right.
So, yeah.
And then to take that a little further, if I just flatly say, so tone, intonation, implication, very important. If I just say, I'm sitting in a meeting, they're saying, that doesn't work for me. I don't have my facial expression, you can't see, but I've got a bit of a scowl and the shake of the head,
Right.
a bit of, fussy lips. That doesn't work for me. That's a very strong statement. Yes,
Right.
it's the start of it. Now, depending on the situation, I may want to be emphatic like that. But let's say it's a superior now, and they're a big shot in that, and I need to be really delicate. Then I can say, that doesn't quite exactly work 100% for me.
Right.
I made it very subtle, maybe 99%, but it's not 100, right? So I can't 100% get behind it. And then I might even add, well, it may just be me that I'm not getting it quite entirely, that I'm not quite getting it entirely, but there's a ... or it may not actually make sense.
Right.
Right. So in all of this, diplomacy is very much connected to ambiguity.
Right.
And expressing things in such a manner that you aren't definitive one way or the other.
Right.
No. Now, at least not, I'm not being definitive in a hard way, right? So I am being definitive that I'm saying it doesn't work for me, which is I'm quite definitive in the fact that I'm not in 100% agreement. But we are leveraging this mentality of opposites. When I say I don't agree, most people take that to mean I disagree, right? And I'm in opposition, which means your whole thing is bad. No, your whole idea isn't bad. Okay, there might be 0.001% of it that's good. I'm not saying how much. I'm avoiding definitiveness. So you can take it that I 99.9% agree with you, but I still can't sign off on it.
Right.
See? There you go. Doesn't matter how much I disagree. So now we avoid getting into the details and the specifics and arguments and defensiveness. I mostly agree with you. I might even say that. So yeah, I mostly agree with you, but there's some things that don't work for me.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, that makes sense.
Or take agreement right out of it. I say, I mostly see the sense of what you're saying, but some of it just doesn't work for me.
Right.
Wow. And somebody here said, oh, yeah, I'm mostly seeing the sense. Okay, I'm talking sense at least. Now I'm on your side, yeah. That's the other key thing. When we had the retail stores, I said to the staff, I said, don't ever sell anything. What do you mean? What do you mean? That's my job. I'm supposed to sell stuff. I said, no, please don't ever try and sell anything. Never. And I would emphasize it. I'd get their brains basically to melt first. And then I'd say, no, help people to buy. Don't sell anything. And I would bring them out, we had counters in the store. I would bring them out from the counter because they'd be behind the counter and I'd be where the customer was standing. I said, yeah, come stand next to me. Help the customer to buy. Stand next to me, look at it now from the customer's point of view. Not from behind the counter, you're automatically, by implication, in opposition. Stand next to them, help them to buy. Very simple.
Right.
Very simple, very subtle shift of psychology. And when we apply the same way, first put yourself on the side of whoever it is that you need to diplomatically deal with. Right? When you're on their side, I'm agreeing with you, however. That's it. First, entrench the fact that you mostly agree with them. Yeah, what you say makes sense. That's a good plan. But there's just that one little thing. I'm like pointing out to you, just in
Lost
case,
you.
you know what? The big boss or the customer might see this, and then what? Then you get an idea and really tweak it. Sorry.
There we go.
It may turn out that one little thing, which they initially think is 1%, it may turn out this 99% of their plan, but that's okay.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. It don't matter. Be on their side. This is the key with diplomacy. Establish that first. Don't get into the definitiveness. Utilize ambiguity, and then to start with, because we are
It's a big pause.
No, I was waiting to see if it came back, but did not come back.
Yeah, I think it's a big
mood
pause.
and
Ah.
understanding. And well, what do you mean that doesn't work? I just say, well, for instance, that once. Okay. Yeah, I was just saying, start with little things and then move to more.
Right, right. Makes
Okay.
sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wait, when I talk too long, then it cuts me out. So Zoom is saying, make it quick.
Oh,
But you get the gist, right? I mean, the key, the abstract underlying points. That's why I want not to get into specifics, but the abstract agreement. Be on the same side.
Right.
Don't force conflict. Leverage ambiguity. We are not looking to be wishy-washy. Our ambiguity is a starting point. Once we are fully on the side and we've gotten a few agreements of change, then you can go more, and eventually you change the whole thing, and it doesn't matter.
Right, right. Yeah, that's an important point.
Yeah. So again, the process that I'm using here is to understand the abstract underlying mechanisms. Right?
Right.
Like for instance, agreements, being on the same side, leveraging ambiguity. These are all the key points for diplomacy. Right?
Mhm.
And one key point on capital D diplomacy. Capital D diplomacy is extra, unwarranted, unneeded, unnecessary effort.
Huh.
We are going above and beyond.
Interesting. Yeah, it's like impeccability in that way.
Exactly. So capital D diplomacy is essentially an act of nobility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And we have to understand this, that sometimes, to make a small little tiny thing, you might have to make a whole week's worth of effort, for instance, or whatever.
Right.
I mean, it's just there's no none.
Yeah,
It's a really, really pure gift.
there we go. We lost you there in the middle.
So I'm just saying it's a gift. Capital diplomacy is a profound, unbelievable, fantastic, magical gift that we give. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. And we have to be aware of that, because it just takes a lot of work. But it's our profound moreness, our goodness, our depth of being that results in this. And we just have to be aware of that. That's just how we are. It's who we are. And sometimes who we are, it's like it can be a bit tiresome. But all right, we can't think of it as tiresome either. We do it without complaint. We do it with joy. We do it with relish. We do it with moreness, because, well, that's who we are.
Right.
Yeah. But it's very important to understand capital D diplomacy is outside the boundaries of normal effort reward calculations.
Yeah.
Way outside. Way outside.
Yeah.
Very
That's
cool.
important.
Very cool.
Yeah.
It is important. It is important. And the underlying of that, when you understand you have an intent to goodness, but you have an intent to moreness, and that intent to moreness includes nobility.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Absolutely.
That's a big deal,
It is. It's true.
Yeah. You have to know yourself. You have to know who you are, what you are, how you're made up of. And this, because our nobility, that intent to nobility, that intent to moreness, can lead us up some peculiar paths sometimes, like in the case of capital D diplomacy.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of effort reward, it doesn't make any sense. But it does to us.
Right.
For us. Okay. Big point. Very big point. Beena, you have anything on this to add?
On capital D diplomacy,
On any of what I've been saying, all of it.
it's all really
Your
interesting.
nature, capital.
It's all
Yeah.
interesting to me, and I'm just making, my mind is making connections to previous ideas and concepts, and it is really interesting. I want to think more about this.
All right. Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. This is
All right, let's go, Erica. Let's go.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, you're good. This is an interesting point. Okay, the last question was, how does perspective shifting fit into dealing with these indirect methods of the BSer and BMN? And my stab at this was that it allows you to better understand the BSer and BMN's motivations and strategy if you perspective shift and
Yeah.
you know, the more you kind of step out and look at their strategy, the better you can adjust your response to be appropriate.
Yeah. And isn't perspective shifting automatically a mechanism for avoiding the agree-disagree conundrum?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Right. So, wow, that's fantastic. Wow. Now let's look at some, just to come at it from another perspective.
Right.
So, wow, what a beautiful car. But, when you look at it from this other perspective, there's somebody who might not like it, I guess, stuff like that. So the moment you shift to a perspective shifting and you bring in multiple perspectives, you automatically unhook from agree and disagree.
Right. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. And then you also, when you specifically and deliberately mention perspective shifting, you are now making people aware of something that they might not have be aware of, because most people tend to live in that black-white world, right? In that agree-disagree world. But when you say, oh, perspective shifting, and then you bring in multiple perspectives, just simply by replacing the agree-disagree with multiple perspectives, you've shifted everybody.
Right.
Now agree and disagree is off the table. Now suddenly we're looking at it. Oh, multiple perspectives are good. Yes, you've got to consider every angle, and you can even use that word. It's important to consider every angle so we don't overlook anything. Oh yeah. Now we're all being good and we're following the rules and we're doing what we should and supposed to do. There you go.
Right.
So perspective shifting is an automatic leveraging mechanism for introducing moreness.
Right.
And it's one that is in conformity with convention, not against it.
Yeah.
It's just that people forget about perspective shifting. They're so in the habit of yes, no, right, wrong, agree, disagree. They forget about perspective shifting.
Yeah.
And for many people, they actually somewhat have a dislike of perspective shifting because it puts them into that unknown territory of ambiguity. They don't know where they stand, and they can get a little uncomfortable with it. But when we introduce perspective shifting as something exciting and more and all this, it's like, and also about being careful and thorough. So, well, we need to be thorough here. We need to be scrupulous. We need to check all the angles. We can't miss something, can we? Right? I'm asking for that agreement again. Well, you try and tell me that we can miss something by not perspective shifting. Okay, good luck with that argument. See, so we do also have to understand that when it comes to being, it's a big point. There's a philosophy attached to this point as well. The philosophy of manipulation. We cannot avoid it. We can't.
Interesting.
It's not possible. Now, I won't go into the full depths of it. We'll get into it later. But if you think it through, you're going to see how we inadvertently manipulate simply through being who we are.
Right.
So all we can do is manipulate ethically.
Right.
And we need to be very skilled at it, which is another reason for understanding PSP. so that we can ethically manipulate. We
Yeah.
have to understand how manipulation works, why it works, and that people, because they don't think for themselves, because they are just receptacles, they take on whatever pressure comes at them. They are slaves to queuing. So, well, now whatever I do manipulates you. And that's not
Right.
on me. It's just that you have made yourself manipulatable, manipulable. That's on you, not on me. So all I can do is now, unfortunately, because I am influencing you rather than manipulating, there's a difference. One is deliberate, and, but still, because I'm in awareness, I'm not just influencing you by default. I'm in full awareness of what I'm doing and saying, every single nuance, conception, belief. It's all in full awareness. Because I'm living deliberately, my influence becomes manipulation. But it is ethical and unethical manipulation. I cannot help it. I cannot avoid it. Right? So just be aware. Capital D diplomacy is a profoundly magical ethical manipulation. Yeah. Okay, you could make the nuance for what is manipulation. Manipulation is influence, direct, deliberate influence with malintent, you could say. We don't have malintent. And I'm deliberately using the ugly word of manipulation
Mhm.
because it's not technically 100% true that we are manipulating, because we are doing so with good intent and ethically.
Right.
However, the end result is somewhat the same. So that nuance gets lost in a court of law, because the judge might say, well, you know what, remember in the famous pornography case, right, with Penthouse, right? And the judge was asked, well, what's your definition of pornography? He says, well, I see it when I know it, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with manipulation. The exact precise definition doesn't matter. You see it when you know it. You know it when you see it, at least. So we have to be aware of this and understand that. All right, there are times when we are going to be influencing things very directly and very deliberately. Okay, can't be avoided. So if we're going to do it, we're going to do it properly and ethically. Yeah.
Yeah. That is a
Yeah.
really
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look in that situation with perspective shifting. The meeting stuck, or the person you're talking to, they're stuck in the black white mindset, right wrong mindset. The moment I introduce the concept of multiple perspective shifting, not just going from black to white, that concept of colors, have I not manipulated them in some way?
true.
Can't be helped. Can't be helped. Yeah. I've
Yeah.
automatically shifted them completely out of where they were at into a whole different world, as it were.
Right.
Yeah. So I've changed their awareness, their understanding, their objectives, their mindset. Everything changes just through the mention of one concept.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the key thing: we can exude such conceptions.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes we don't even say anything, just our presence, our beingness, that's enough alone to influence and therefore manipulate. It's amazing. So just to be aware, it's a kind of a deep point. It's a deep point. When you live in awareness, you start to affect the world around you,
Well,
especially when you are living in deliberate living. This now you really start to affect the world around you. It's quite something.
yeah, for sure.
It's quite something.
Yeah, that is a very interesting point,
That's something.
for sure.
So here's the key point that I want to really, really emphasize. We have such an
Yeah.
aversion to manipulation that we tend to as a result. Sometimes we need to affect in order to be effective. Correct?
Mm-hmm. True.
So when we affect, okay, this is, you know, we start to open up all these ethical questions. We just have to be aware that we cannot avoid this. And the only thing we can do is do so to the best of our ability, to do so ethically and impeccably. Yeah?
Right.
Yeah, we're going to be a virus one way or the other. We can't avoid it.
Right.
Might as well be a positive virus, right?
True. Very true.
It's exciting, though. It's exciting.
Okay. No, look out. Look out. Thank you. Ugh. All right. Sorry, something fell over. Had to go get it.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So let's see. What was the last question in module 3? I mean session 3. So module 10, session 4 was crappy conscience.
Mm.
My repeat back takeaway of this was BSers engage in behavior which they know to be bad, as they do have a conscience, because they believe that doing the quote right thing and not taking advantage of a shortcut makes them a loser. And
Yeah.
the exercise had 2 questions. One was, when looking for agreement to their transgressions, lies, inner BS, etc., what does this say about the conscience of the BSer and BMN? Do they actually have consciences, or are they merely making every effort to cover themselves? How does choosing to believe fit into this? And I said, I think looking for agreement to their nonsense shows they do have a conscience. Because if they didn't, it wouldn't matter to them if they had agreement from anyone else or not. I also wonder if BSers and BMNs have a somewhat
Exactly.
I was delayed there. Yeah, it wouldn't matter to them whether
Have a somewhat what?
if they didn't have a conscience, then it wouldn't matter to them whether they had agreement for anyone else or not. And
Exactly.
I also wonder if BSers and BMNs have a somewhat repurposed conscience. If their version of right
Yes.
has become skewed enough, does their conscience actually tell them that what they are doing is right and good?
Yeah. I think you make a very, very excellent point. And I do feel the same, that they do have a somewhat repurposed conscience.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. You know, if you manage to skew your idea of right and wrong so much that to the point that being right is really taking advantage, then your conscience becomes repurposed to tell you, well, that's the right thing to do. You know, this is what you're doing.
And to win, they feel, okay, that's it. That's what I should be doing. So when I win, I'm right. The problem with it is that it is a sort of semi-repurposed conscience, not altogether.
Right.
Because you watch them when they do win, they never really experience the joys of it. There's always that ambiguity involved. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. They never get the fullness out of it. So it's always a bit problematic for them.
That's interesting.
Now, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say the last part of the question was, how does choosing to believe fit into this? And I said, I assume choosing to believe refers to us choosing to believe that BMNs have a conscience. I was sort of trying to figure out what that specific thing was alluding to. I assumed it meant, if we choose to believe that BMNs have a conscience, is that sort of reflecting on us, or how is that altering the situation? But I wasn't sure what the choosing to believe was in reference to.
Yeah, it wasn't anything specifically. It's exactly just a point of thought to say, how does choosing to believe come into matters of conscience? Just an awareness point.
Right.
When we do realize that, oh, wait a second, it does come into it. It does matter. It does affect things. then we see this very differently. And they do choose to believe because it's convenient.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. That is
Very
interesting.
powerful. Very powerful. But yes, we do also choose to believe that there's some hope for BMNs.
Right.
Yeah. Now, I do want to make a distinction here between BMNs. I do think some who have no conscience, psychopaths, sociopaths, and outright criminals, and that. And again, this the whole degree. Like look at the Tony Soprano, right? You watch Sopranos?
We've seen a little bit of it, but we haven't watched
Oh,
it.
okay. Oh, okay. It's worth watching as a study in psychology.
Mm-hmm.
Because part of the storyline is that he goes to the psychologist, and it's a very big part of the thing, right?
Right.
So I don't know if you got,
I
yeah,
think I saw
right,
like the very beginning of the show. Yeah.
right. It starts off with that already, and it's a theme that goes on all the way. He is a terrible human being, but he's looking to absolve himself with the psychologist. He's absolutely looking for the psychologist to say, "Well, actually, you're okay." And of course, she can't do this, and it leads to all sorts of problems. So, but in other words, he still had a teeny tiny bit of conscience somewhere in him. He said somewhere to sound nice. But also, the people that we deal with are generally not nice people. Yes,
Right.
I exploit them, but they already like the one gambler, who got into debt, and then they leverage him and they get him to do all sorts of bad things because he said, look, he was a bad person too. He wasn't I forget, he didn't say bad person. He said he wasn't all that clean to begin with. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been in this mess in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So he also makes the distinction to say, well, we kind of are bad people, but we also prey on other bad people. One way, and not all the time, of course, they trample all over innocence completely, but he happily disregards that, and it doesn't factor in. So you see the very subtleties of how he is trying to absolve that. He's not a complete sociopath. He knows, and it's a problem. He's just ridiculously indulgent.
Mm-hmm.
Fascinating show.
It is
Fascinating show. Yeah.
very interesting. We'll have to pick it back up
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
Okay. Might be able to get through.
Sorry. So Tony Soprano chooses to believe. He
Right.
chooses to believe that what he does is in some way a good on society. In other words, if you take it through to the end, he's kind of teaching these semi-bad people on the edge a really valuable lesson, and he's helping them to be better and not fall into the world that he's in.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Chooses to believe. Yeah. In other words,
Very interesting.
in his convoluted mind. Yeah.
Right.
The one thing that's really interesting, right, when people do things that are transgressive, right, and that, yeah, but everybody does all on this. It was in the gaming where
Oh, it is again.
it's not a technical rule against the game.
So hold it for a minute and then please say it again.
Don't say you can't. It's like, okay, you come afterwards and you salvage. Ah, so it's kind of crappy if I'm doing all the work in killing the bad guys and you just come and scoop up my salvage, right? But technically it's allowed, right? It's not against the rules of the game. You won't get in trouble with the game. So a lot of people use this justification for the behavior. Yeah, but it's not against the rules of the game. That doesn't make it nice. But here's the point that I want to make. So I'll bring this up with the guy, right? And he's fudging. He knows what he's doing is crappy, but he's trying to justify it. So I said, well, are you evil? He says, no, I'm not evil. So, well, isn't evil deliberately doing something that you know to be wrong? Then he got into a long, stressful, big old justification conundrum, right?
Interesting.
So the point I'm trying to make here is he was okay with ambiguity and fudging and saying, yeah, it wasn't, but everybody does it. It's not against the rules, blah blah, right? However, when I pointed out that actually it's evil because to deliberately do something bad is evil, this really bothered him. So same with Tony Soprano. He's a bad guy, but he's not evil.
Right.
It's really interesting. So
Yeah.
this is it's a very fine point, but it's useful to understand.
Mm-hmm.
And when you make that connection to understand that nobody wants to be thought of as evil. Yeah,
Right.
it's amazing that deep, deep intent to goodness. Now there are some evil or not, I don't care. Yeah, maybe I am evil, or they'll just say, "Yes, I am." Oh, okay.
Right.
So just because this is predominant and it's the prevailing logic, doesn't mean it exists everywhere. And we have to understand that there are some people who have absolutely no conscience. They have no conception or right or wrong. It's just they do whatever they want to do,
Right.
and that's it. They understand that others think it's wrong, but not them personally.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. That's
Or or that conscience is so convoluted and buried and subverted, like in Tony Soprano's case, that it may even be more so than that. I remember interviews with Jeffrey Dahmer where you could see him, and it was really fascinating. Where he said, "Well, he invited the guy over to his house, and it was like in a date kind of a thing. It was a semi-homosexual thing, and but I'm not a homosexual," he said, which is rather interesting. But he's inviting the guy to his home under sexual pretense. Now, in the conversation, it sounded like, well, that was for real, that there was some agenda, even though he's not homosexual. But all right, because he had other anyway. So, and then at some point, he said, well, the interview asked him, well, but why did you decide to kill him? He said, I don't know, I just felt like it. Well, I just did. There was no real reason for it. It just kind of happened and changed his mind. Okay, very interesting. He didn't look to justify it or substantiate it or give a good reason for it. Just wow, it just kind of happened. Just I don't know, just changed. And he didn't even say I felt like it. He just said I don't know. Just at some point it just changed. I don't remember his exact words because it was very nebulous. He just said, well, it changed somewhere. There was no like impulse or motivation. Just kind of. That was it. I
yeah.
can't remember. Yeah, he didn't have a specific, definite reason, which is interesting. When people looking to justify from conscience, they usually have and try and find some rationale, a justification. He didn't. It's very interesting that somebody could do something like that on essentially just a whim or no reason at all. Well, just kind of sort of an idea came or whatever.
Yeah.
Not even a strong idea. It's just like a nothing. It's like like you sort of having a meal and you suddenly decide to have juice with your meal that you don't normally have. Well, no particular reason, just that's what just kind of came up. It's fascinating. No real reason for it whatsoever. It's most intriguing.
Yeah. That's very interesting.
Yeah, yeah,
Very
yeah.
interesting.
And in his mind, it was no much of a more deal than it would be, like say, pouring a glass of juice. The same amount of energy, effort, thought, emotionality went into it. Yes, he understands others may see this because he did hide the body and all that, which they understand others think it's wrong, but not them. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and really, this doesn't make us all that different to somebody like Jeffrey Dahmer in
Mm-hmm.
some respects, because we too do things that we keep private. Not because we think they're wrong, but just because we're aware that others won't see it the same way as what we do.
Right. Right. True.
It's fascinating.
Very true.
Yeah, yeah, very intriguing.
Well, all right. I guess that's a good stopping point and
Oh, we're out of time already, really?
at our time.
Oh no. Oh no. I wasn't watching the time. Oh man.
We're gonna try
Eh,
and
to me, it feels like we've been going for, okay, I was going to say 10 minutes, but then I realized we had all the chat before. So, okay, that was like 10 minutes. So that means we've been going like 20 minutes.
Well, there you go. Yeah, I know. Time flies.
My
Mom,
sense of time.
I walk in.
Is Kay going to come on now? Does she want to come on now or just
No,
go next time?
we're gonna try to go for a walk before Joe gets home.
Oh, brilliant.
I think she's finishing up her writing and then.
Yeah. Oh, good. Okay. Good.
Okay.
All right. Oh.
So,
Well, tell Kay we missed her. We did miss her. Now, if Kay does want to come tomorrow instead of today, because we we've got Tuesdays and Thursdays now, right? Instead of Tuesday, Wednesday. If she wants to come tomorrow, as a to fill in for today, she's welcome, or just come on Thursday. Just let us know either way.
okay, I will let her know.
Thank you. So fabulous, Eric and Jane. I did want to say, I am keen for us to take this. We're halfway through PSP now, and to do the second half in a little bit more accelerated.
Sure.
Speed. Yeah. It's just the nature of how it's set up. That it's a reverse funnel. You start at the beginning and you go. You can go quicker as you go through it, because all the intensity is in the beginning. So, okay, enjoy your work. Are you going to walk to your favorite tree or just locally?
I don't know. We'll see.
Well, say hello to the tree for us, please.
Well, I will. Yeah, we always just kind of go forever. So we'll see.
Okay. Next time we'll ask about the standing and all of that stuff.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Just love it. Just love it. Oh man, I don't want you to go. I want more.
I appreciate you both, and
that was fabulous. That was really fabulous. So
appreciate your insights and listening and all of that. And so I will look forward to chatting with you all on Thursday.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Bye-bye, Erica. Bye-bye, Erica. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Oh, bye-bye. Bye-bye. Very cool. End recording, Beena. You did? I'm not looking at the screen, so I can't see. It's ended. Not that I have anything to say.